and Chusha is a hardworking girl. In her free time, she takes on a part-time job as a caregiver for patients with cerebral palsy. When she arrives at the Han family's house, she is overwhelmed by their wealth. Her patient is a young man named Han Qilu. As a dedicated caregiver, Chusha promises to take good care of him. She prepares her medical equipment to insert a catheter for her patient. However, to her surprise, he suddenly stands up, though his movements are uncoordinated. Chusha reassures him, insisting that she has received professional training. Meanwhile, Qilu's mother holds onto hope that her son will recover. She longs to touch him even just once. Just then, Dr. An arrives to treat the young master. At the same time, Chusha is still chasing after Qilu. He falls onto the sofa, accidentally brushing his lips against hers. Madame Han rushes to help her son, but forgets that she cannot touch him. After receiving a call from her manager, Chusha finally realizes she has entered the wrong house. In a private conversation with Madame Han, Dr. An suggests that Chusha might be able to cure Qilu. It turns out that due to an incident in his childhood, Qilu developed an allergy to physical contact with the opposite sex. Yet, when he touched Chusha's lips, nothing happened. Dr. An proposes hiring Chusha as an intermediary to help treat Qilu. After hearing about Chusha's situation, Madame Han agrees to pay her mother's medical bills. In exchange, Chusha must treat Qilu. Additionally, Madame Han offers her a daily salary and even allows her to attend school with Qilu. The contract feels like a lifesaver for Chusha, but it faces strong opposition from the young master. Left with no choice, Madame Han resorts to emotional manipulation to force her son to agree. She gives both of them smartwatches that can track the time and distance between them, ensuring they remain within 1 meter of each other at all times. To smooth things over, Chusha apologizes to Qilu for mistakenly assuming he had cerebral palsy. However, he coldly takes the elevator down, forcing her to panic and chase after him to maintain their required distance. Qilu tells her that he will only forgive her if she quits. However, he still allows her a trial period for the day. The butler hands Chusha a file detailing Qilu's preferences and informs her that she will be starting school with him that afternoon. At the business academy, Qilu orders Chusha to step back 3 paces, strictly forbidding her from getting too close. But as soon as the smartwatch beeps in warning, she instinctively reaches out toward him. Back in class, the other students find Chusha unfamiliar. Since there is only one empty seat, she has no choice but to sit next to Qilu. A classmate named Chunchuan pulls Chusha outside. He remembers that she used to work part-time at his family's pastry shop. When Chunchuan asks about her mother's condition, Chusha explains that her mother still requires regular dialysis while waiting for a compatible kidney. She tells him that by working for the Han family, she can now afford the medical expenses. Chunchuan warns her to be careful, saying that Qilu is a total weirdo who doesn't let anyone touch him. Chusha dismisses it as just a baseless rumor, insisting that although Qilu may seem difficult, he's actually a good person. That night, Chusha sneaks into the young master's room. She quietly sits beside him to ensure they meet the required 8 hours of close proximity. What she doesn't realize is that Qilu has been awake the whole time. The next morning, Chusha excitedly announces that she has passed her trial period. Qilu considers that if he's in a good mood, he might give her the watch to complete her task. As Chusha chatters on about everything from home to school, Qilu tells her that if she can entertain him, he'll hand over the watch. Back in class, worried that sitting next to him might ruin his mood, Chusha hurriedly runs outside. Wanting to understand Qilu better, she decides to study the file detailing his interests. Just then, a classmate named Mo Sinwei approaches and warns Chusha to stay away from Qilu, claiming that he belongs only to her. Back in class, Chusha asks Qilu if Sinwei is his girlfriend. His mood immediately darkens. Holding the smartwatch teasingly, he dangles it in front of her, offering her a chance to trade it for a tiramisu. Waiting for Sinwei in the hallway, Qilu warns her not to cause trouble for Chusha. He states that while he never bothered dealing with classmates before, from now on he doesn't want anyone mistaking Sinwei as his girlfriend. In the schoolyard, Qilu secretly overhears Chusha telling Chunchuan that she's only putting up with the young master to pay for her mother's treatment. Holding the tiramisu in his hand, he suddenly loses his appetite. When Chusha happily mentions that she used to work at this bakery and praises its owner as the kindest person in the world, Qilu, feeling annoyed, returns the cake to her. Back home, Chusha complains that the young master is like a devil and even wastes food. In her diary, she doodles a curse wishing that he would have nightmares. To her surprise, the next morning Qilu is in a foul mood complaining that he had a nightmare last night, making Chusha wonder if her curse actually worked. At school, Chusha complains to Chinchuan that she accidentally cursed the young master. She feels guilty because he actually had a nightmare. Just then, Qilu catches Chusha talking about him behind his back. He demands the smartwatch back, threatening to fire her if she doesn't return it. Panicked Chusha rushes after him to hand it over. Qilu reminds her that she must not be more than 1 meter away from him. With exams approaching, Qilu lends Chusha a stack of books. He warns her that if she ranks last in the class, she will lose the right to sit next to him. Despite rereading the books multiple times, Chusha still doesn't understand a thing. Frustrated, she writes in her diary, cursing the demonic young master to score a perfect 0. By morning, Chusha is still buried under the mountain of books. Exhausted, she dozes off and accidentally leans against Qilu's back, forgetting about their 1 meter rule. Sinwei, witnessing the scene, flies into a jealous rage. She confronts Chusha in private, insisting that Qilu must be under some spell to allow her near him. When she hears Chusha grumbling that Qilu must be cursed with an illness, Sinwei locks her inside the music room. Just then, classmates arrive and pull Sinwei into the exam room. Meanwhile, Qilu, noticing that Chusha hasn't shown up for the test, hurriedly searches for her. Finding her unconscious in the music room, he anxiously carries her to the infirmary, only to realize that Chusha is simply sleeping after studying all night. When Chusha wakes up, she scrambles to get to the exam room, only to realize she's already too late. Sinwei comes to apologize to Chusha for losing control of her anger. However, she still insists that Chusha shouldn't have cursed Qilu with an illness. Qilu questions why his supposed illness has anything to do with Sinwei. In her flustered attempt to explain, she grabs his hand, unknowingly causing him to get hurt. Gently tending to his wound, Chusha reveals that she always carries medicine with her, just in case he accidentally touches someone. Back home, Chusha continues her hopeless struggle to absorb knowledge. Seeing how hard she is studying, Madame Han brings her a bowl of nourishing soup. Chusha is deeply moved. Ever since her mother fell ill, no one has cooked for her. Madame Han sympathizes with Chusha's loneliness, admitting that she too has not been able to touch her own son for over a decade. Touched by Madame Han's sorrow, Chusha becomes even more determined to cure Qilu. She recalls Dr. An's advice that direct physical contact with the patient is necessary. Imagining herself boldly smacking Qilu on the head, she snaps back to reality, realizing it was just a fantasy. While passing by the exam results board, Chusha overhears classmates gossiping that Qilu skipped the test because of her losing his top ranking to Sinwei. Stammering, she apologizes to him, but Qilu doesn't blame her at all. In the faculty office, the homeroom teacher scolds the 3 students for missing the exam. Chenchuan, however, is in high spirits, thrilled that for the first time ever he scored the same as the top student Qilu. Chusha takes full responsibility, pleading with the teacher not to punish the others. Sinwei steps in to explain that Qilu and Chenchuan had been helping Chusha, which is why they were late. The homeroom teacher finally agrees to let all 3 take a makeup test next week. Back in class, Chusha keeps reading but understands nothing. She grumbles about how unfair it is that Qilu can just sleep and still score full marks. Casually, he tells her to hand over her book, offering to mark the key points that will be on the exam. Since there was still a lot she didn't understand, Chusha continued bothering Qilu. Unexpectedly, he had already prepared a simulated exam to help her practice. Meanwhile, Sinwei went to the bakery to find Chenchuan. She handed him study materials on the condition that he had to score higher than Chusha. If he failed, she wouldn't talk to him anymore. At the library, Qilu overheard Chusha complaining about not understanding the material. He approached her and patiently explained the concepts. Recalling Dr. An's advice about direct contact, Chusha hesitated, contemplating touching Qilu's hand. However, he reminded her to focus on the questions and ask him if she didn't understand anything. When Chenchuan arrived, Chusha excitedly ran out to greet him, which displeased Qilu. Chusha shared the simulated test with her best friend and asked for his advice on how to touch a man. Chenchuan teased her, questioning if she had feelings for Qilu. Then he suggested she take advantage of Qilu's deep sleep and secretly touch him. Later, when Chusha couldn't find Qilu, she rushed to the rooftop to look for him. However, Qilu remained distant, leaving her even more confused about men's thoughts. During a meal with Chenchuan, Chusha grumbled about still not being able to get close to Qilu. Chenchuan came up with an idea. Chusha could hide a piece of paper in her hand and pretend to remove it from Qilu's hair. To practice, he played the role of Qilu while she attempted the trick on him. Unexpectedly, Qilu saw them looking intimate and stormed off in jealousy. That evening, Chairman Han returned, making the family atmosphere even more tense. Chusha secretly thought that Qilu was just as scary as his father. Noticing Qilu reading outside, she quietly attempted Chenchuan's plan. However, before she could act, Qilu caught her. Curious, she asked if he was mad because he had overheard Chenchuan saying she secretly liked him. Chusha quickly clarified that she only wanted to cure his illness faster but couldn't reveal Qilu's true condition. Seeing Qilu's reaction, she offered to explain everything to Chenchuan if he minded. In her rush, Chusha grabbed Qilu's hand and realized that direct contact wasn't as difficult as she had imagined. On the test day, Chusha was surprised to see that the exam was identical to the simulated one Qilu had prepared. Afterward, Qilu caught Chusha attempting to put a piece of paper on his head, realizing it was Chenchuan's idea. Meanwhile, Chenchuan apologized to Sinwei for not betraying Chusha. Hearing that Qilu had created a special practice test for Chusha, Sinwei became even more jealous. To celebrate Chusha passing the exam, Madame Han prepared a surprise gift for her, a tablet with a custom wallpaper featuring her and Qilu. At school, Chusha wanted to complete the task of touching Qilu for 1 minute. He knew what she was up to and told her to stay away from him. During class break, Qilu ran outside to take a phone call. Chusha followed him and overheard him hiding something from his parents as he investigated an issue. She questioned why he always kept everything to himself. He clearly wasn't happy but tried to act normal. Chusha thought of a way to change his mood. She wanted to challenge Qilu to see who could get bitten by the puppy first. Since he ignored her, Chusha decided to play alone. Eventually, when Qilu pressed the puppy's teeth, he unintentionally touched Chusha's hand. He didn't rush to pull his hand away and helped her complete the 1-minute task. In class, Chenchuan accidentally dropped Chusha's tablet. A classmate saw the photo of Chusha and Qilu together and began gossiping. The rumor that Chusha was living with Qilu quickly spread throughout the school. Chenchuan apologized for causing trouble for his friend. Chusha didn't blame him but was worried about Qilu's reaction. Just then, she received news from Mrs. Han that they had found a suitable kidney for her mother. To show her gratitude, Chusha told her that she had completed the task of contacting Qilu for 1 minute. As soon as Qilu entered the classroom, he overheard his classmates gossiping about his relationship with Chusha. He firmly stated that there was no way he could be dating her. Sinwei immediately accused Chusha of intentionally editing the photo to make it look like they were together. Seeing that Qilu didn't bother to explain, Chusha hurriedly left. At home, Chusha apologized to Qilu for not changing the wallpaper in time. Qilu coldly reminded her that she was just a hired worker in his family and had no right to cause trouble for him. At school, Chenchuan worried about Chusha, but she only cared about how Qilu felt. Chenchuan sympathized with her since he always thought of Sinwei first whenever something happened. He admitted that he had liked her for a long time. Seeing Chusha looking downcast and alone, Sinwei smugly announced that she would take this chance to pursue Qilu. Chusha quickly ran after her to stop her, but accidentally burned her hand with Sinwei's hot tea. Qilu, concerned, pulled her back to the classroom. He took a bottle of medicine from Chusha's desk and gently applied it to her wound. Unexpectedly, their classmates were still in the room and witnessed the intimate moment between them. No longer angry, Qilu agreed to cooperate with Chusha in her treatment efforts. Just as the 1-minute contact ended, he suddenly pulled his hand away, causing Chusha to lose balance and fall into his arms. At that moment, Mrs. Han walked in and was completely satisfied with what she saw. She then suggested increasing their contact time to 10 minutes. Passing by a recruitment notice for the drama club, Chusha thought it was a great opportunity to increase her contact time with Qilu. She wanted to compete for the female lead role, but Qilu had no interest in playing the male lead. However, he still kept an ear out for Chusha's casting results. Chenchuan informed her that he and Sinwei had been chosen as the lead actors, while Chusha was assigned to prepare props. Chusha, frustrated by her fate of never being the female lead. Qilu walked in, criticized her poor drawing skills, and decided to help. While sketching, he accidentally brushed against her hand. Meanwhile, Chinchuan was captivated by Sinwei's dance practice, unable to take his eyes off her. He admitted that he had asked Qilu to deliver the props to Chusha so he could rush to practice with Sinwei. Upon hearing this, Sinwei was furious and stormed off to find Qilu. Back in the props room, Chusha had just finished her drawing. As she stood up, she accidentally slipped and instinctively grabbed onto Qilu's collar, pulling him close to her. As a result, the drawing was ruined, but Qilu seemed amused. He tricked Chusha into touching her nose, causing watercolor paint to smudge on her face. Realizing she had been fooled, Chusha decided to take revenge on him. Qilu chased after her, demanding an apology. Just then, Sinwei barged in. Seeing her completely out of control, Qilu quickly dodged, causing Sinwei to twist her ankle. Since Sinwei was unable to walk for a few days, the drama club had to select a new female lead. Remembering that Chusha had previously auditioned for Cinderella, Chinchuan suggested that she take Sinwei's place. He offered to teach her the female lead's dance. Watching them interact closely, Qilu found himself unable to focus on his book. Annoyed, he left early, dragging Chusha along with him. Seeing how happy she was about becoming the female lead only made Qilu even more irritated. Later, in the reading room, Qilu noticed that Chusha hadn't come to treat his condition. Turned out she was practicing her dance by the pool. Secretly watching her struggle clumsily, he finally reminded her to complete her task. Panicked, Chusha hurried over, but Qilu had other plans. He decided to make use of their 10-minute session to teach her how to dance. Despite Chusha constantly stepping on his feet, Qilu remained patient. He soon realized that she couldn't distinguish between left and right. Willing to help her, Qilu let Chusha step on his feet as he guided her through the dance steps. Madame Han was overjoyed for her son and quickly captured the beautiful moment. Early in the morning, Chusha thanked Qilu for patiently teaching her how to dance. She hoped he would come to watch her performance, but Qilu acted uninterested, leaving her disappointed. However, he arrived at the venue much earlier than expected. Backstage, Chinchuan couldn't find the prince's costume. Since it was already time for their class's performance, Chusha had no choice but to go on stage first. Cinderella waited and waited, but her prince never appeared. Hearing her classmates tease that she wasn't worthy of a prince, Chusha felt uneasy. Just then, Qilu made a decision. He stepped onto the stage. Under the dazzling lights, he walked toward Cinderella like a true prince. Their hands intertwined as they danced together in perfect harmony. At last, Chusha had found the prince she had been waiting for. Upon hearing the news, Sinwei immediately confronted Qilu. He reminded her not to touch him so casually. Sinwei was unwilling to accept that someone like Chusha, a mere Cinderella, was allowed to touch him while she was not. Chinchuan arrived and gently coaxed Sinwei to the infirmary. He patiently listened to her complaints and carefully bandaged her injury. He then told her that when it comes to feelings, it's simply about liking or not liking someone. It has nothing to do with who is more outstanding. Chusha might not be as exceptional as Sinwei, but in Qilu's eyes, she was special. Later, at a bakery, Sinwei asked Chinchuan what he would do if he liked someone who didn't return his feelings. He said he would quietly watch over that person, memorizing every expression they made. He would fear seeing them hurt, which was why he made the rainbow cake that person loved the most. Seeing Sinwei's conflicted expression, Chinchuan quickly reassured her that he didn't expect anything in return because love, after all, was never fair. Sinwei was touched by Chinchuan's sincerity but couldn't give him an answer yet. During breakfast, Mrs. Han happily praised Qilu and Chusha's performance. Qilu explained that he only helped Chusha because he didn't want to ruin the class's play. Noticing his displeasure, Chusha clarified that they had simply worked well together as part of a group activity. Besides, her only intention was to help treat Qilu's condition, nothing more. Later, while in his room, Qilu accidentally came across Chusha's diary. He couldn't help but laugh at the silly little curses she had written about him. Among her notes, he also discovered her wish to go on an outdoor camping trip at least once. Meanwhile, Chusha reminded herself to push aside any inappropriate thoughts as Qilu was already engaged to Miss Xiang. Just then, Chinchuan called, asking her to come help out at the bakery. Chusha found it odd, as he usually prepared the cakes the night before. Seeing Chinchuan's flushed face when she arrived, she suspected he was hiding something from her. Outside, Qilu used binoculars to watch Chusha playing around with Chinchuan. Feeling jealous, he suddenly craved cake. When Chusha pressed him for answers, Chinchuan had no choice but to confess Sinwei had agreed to give him a chance and wait. Just then Qilu walked in holding Chusha's diary in his hand. He demanded that she bake him a cake in exchange for getting her diary back. Meanwhile, in the car, the butler was reporting work matters to Mrs. Han. She, however, had already realized that her son had feelings for Chusha. Why else would he keep teasing the girl he liked? After finishing the cake, Chusha looked around but couldn't find Qilu. Suddenly, he pulled her from behind, causing her to stumble into his chest. They were so close that she could hear the heartbeat of the devil himself. Qilu apologized for reading her diary and as compensation promised to take her on a camping trip. Using the excuse that his manager had a fever, he arranged to go out with Chusha alone. Seeing how clumsy she was, he gently fastened her seatbelt for her. On the way, Chusha suddenly clutched her stomach in pain, suspecting she had eaten too much cake that morning. Concerned, Qilu had no choice but to take her to a hotel to rest. Back in the room, Qilu informed Chusha that this was the only room left in the hotel. Accepting her situation, she went to ask for extra blankets and pillows to sleep on the sofa. Unexpectedly, Qilu placed a cooling patch on her forehead, making her heart race. In the middle of the night, Chusha tossed and turned uncomfortably on the hard sofa. Not wanting to be disturbed, Qilu finally allowed her to sleep on the bed. Chusha wrapped herself tightly in a blanket, promising not to touch the young master. However, she had a habit of sleepwalking, wandering around the room before eventually climbing into bed and hugging Qilu tightly. Her warmth made him dream of the little girl who once saved him. By morning, Chusha was still clinging to him. As soon as she woke up and realized what had happened, she panicked, apologized profusely, and bolted into the bathroom. Meanwhile, Mrs. Han learned that her son had been secretly searching for a girl from his past. The butler recalled that Qilu once mentioned being rescued by someone, but when they found him back then, he was all alone. The doctor also suspected that the girl was merely an illusion Qilu had created in his moment of despair. Finally, they arrived at the beach. Chusha set up camp with Qilu, but when their hands accidentally brushed, she became flustered and quickly ran back to her tent. Upon opening her luggage, she realized she had forgotten a sleeping mat at home. She admitted it to Qilu and came up with the idea of drawing a red line to mark their boundaries, promising not to cross over or touch him. While strolling along the shore, Qilu caught a tiny crab. When Chusha compared the crab's arrogance to his own, he immediately chased after her, determined to teach her a lesson. Watching her carefully navigate the uneven rocks, Qilu gently took her hand, becoming her support. As they listened to the sound of the waves, Chusha made a silent wish, hoping that Qilu would recover soon. Seeing that Chusha wanted to take photos, Qilu immediately became her photographer. When it was his turn, he only wanted pictures of his back, but for a photo with Chusha, he was willing to show his face. Looking into the distance, Chusha spotted Sinwei walking toward the sea. Thinking her classmate might be in distress, she rushed over and pulled Sinwei back. In the struggle, Chusha accidentally pushed Sinwei into the water. As it turned out, Sinwei had just been taking a walk to clear her mind. Since her clothes were completely soaked, Chusha quickly called for help. As expected, Chinchuan arrived in no time, bringing plenty of supplies. To give her friend a chance, Chusha dragged Qilu away to another spot. That evening, Chinchuan showed off his grilling skills. When Chusha offered Sinwei some fruit, Chinchuan quickly stopped her, knowing that she only liked drinking tea. Qilu started wondering about Chusha's own preferences. Later, when Sinwei clutched her stomach and ran off, Chinchuan asked Chusha to bring her a sanitary pad. He had noticed notes about her cycle in her pencil case before, so he had thoughtfully prepared in advance. In a private conversation with Chinchuan, Qilu hesitated before asking what he should do for someone he liked. Eventually, he nodded and admitted that he had feelings for Chusha. Chinchuan told him that love doesn't have rules about what's right or wrong. When someone truly likes another, they won't be able to stop themselves from caring and treating that person well. On the other side, Chusha deeply admired Sinwei for having someone who cared so much about her. Sinwei was touched by Chinchuan's sincerity but struggled to control her own emotions. She couldn't just forget Qilu overnight. However, she was beginning to find Chinchuan rather endearing. Back at the campsite, Qilu bluntly asked Chusha about her menstrual cycle. Flustered, she quickly covered his mouth, accidentally pushing him down in the process. The next day, Chinchuan organized a lottery to pick a fun activity. Qilu happened to draw Chusha's wish to visit an amusement park. At the park, Chusha eagerly dragged Qilu onto the Ferris wheel. Watching her excitedly play the claw machine, he made an effort to win her a plush toy. The two pairs happily rode bumper boats together. During a break, Sinwei accidentally brushed against Qilu's hand, but he didn't have an allergic reaction. That was when a young woman introduced herself. She was Xiang family's heiress Ma Ting. Having just returned from abroad, she had immediately insisted that her father bring her to visit her fiancé. Madame Han disliked Ma Ting and bluntly stated that her son was away on a camping trip with his girlfriend. Mr. Han quickly clarified that Chusha was merely a caregiver looking after Qilu. Meanwhile, Chusha congratulated Qilu on his recovery. He informed her that he would soon be leaving to search for someone very important. Chusha secretly assumed he was going abroad to find his fiancée. Now that he was cured, it was time for her to leave as well. Back at the bakery, Sinwei noticed that Chen Chuan seemed downcast. He confided in her that he was afraid she would resume chasing after Qilu now that he had recovered. Unexpectedly, Sinwei kissed Chen Chuan on the cheek, assuring him that at this moment he was the only one she liked. Upon returning home, Chusha prepared a heartfelt gift for Madame Han. She took her hand and placed it on Qilu's face. Overcome with emotion, Madame Han choked up, finally daring to embrace her son after 14 years. As Chusha walked past, Qilu deliberately asked the butler about plans for his birthday celebration. He emphasized that he didn't need any extravagant gifts, just sincerity. The butler remarked that Chusha was the Han family's savior, so the young master could rightfully invite her. While Chusha was thinking about a birthday gift for Qilu, he was busy researching domineering ways CEOs confess their love. He decided to ask Chen Chuan for advice. Outside, Qilu ran into Ma Ting but didn't recognize her. When he met Chen Chuan, Qilu revealed that Min was planning to confess to Chusha at the upcoming birthday party and wanted Chen Chuan's help. At the bakery, Chusha personally made a gift for Qilu. Sinwei, having heard that he liked the color red, advised Chusha to wear a red dress to the party. Back home, Chusha was unsure where to find one when Madame Han suddenly brought her a red dress. As expected, it was no coincidence. Madame Han was simply following her son's plan. At the birthday party, Chusha arrived in a red dress to help the butler arrange the decorations. From a distance, Qilu was secretly watching her. As the party was about to begin, Qilu felt a bit nervous. Chen Chuan had prepared roses to support him. Seeing Qilu's anxious expression, he reassured him that everything was going according to plan. Stepping onto the stage to give a speech, Qilu thanked everyone for attending his 20th birthday celebration. Seizing the moment, he prepared to announce something important. However, in the audience, Sinwei couldn't find Chusha. Suddenly, Chairman Han seized the microphone from his son and introduced Ma Ting as Qilu's fiancée. It turned out that before the party began, Chairman Han had spoken privately with Chusha. He had bluntly told her that he would publicly announce his son's engagement at the party. Understanding his intentions, Chusha firmly stated that she had only stayed to help treat Qilu's illness. Now that he had recovered, she didn't want Miss Hung to misunderstand anything. Chairman Han believed that since his son had rarely interacted with outsiders, he saw Chusha as a refreshing change. However, he considered Qilu's curiosity to be merely temporary. Ma Ting, thinking the flowers Qilu had prepared were for her, accepted them without hesitation. Enraged, Qilu stormed off, leaving her humiliated in front of the guests. Meanwhile, Chairman Han promised to provide the Xiang family with an explanation soon. Meanwhile, Chusha left her dress and watch on the bed and quietly walked away from a place she no longer belonged to. Qilu rushed back, but he was too late to stop her. Hearing that his son had sent people to search for Chusha, Chairman Han looked at him with disappointment. He scolded Qilu for being selfish and not considering his father's feelings. Qilu argued that anyone could say that except his father. He reminded Chairman Han that he had once concealed his son's arrest to protect the company's stock prices, leaving Qilu locked in an abandoned house for days. And now, for the sake of business, he was forcing his son into an arranged marriage with the Xiang family. Madame Han stepped in to stop their argument. She informed them that Chusha's mother had recently undergone surgery and would definitely return to the hospital for a follow-up. If Qilu waited there, he might see Chusha again. On his way to the hospital, Qilu unknowingly passed by Chusha. When he arrived at school, Chen Chuan informed him that Chairman Han had already arranged for Chusha to withdraw. Seeing one of Chuxia's toys, Qilu was reminded of the happy memories they had shared. Just then Chanchuan called to say he had found Chuxia's address in an old job application from the bakery. Even though it was the middle of the night, Qilu immediately rushed to her house. Chuxia was surprised that he had managed to find her address. Coincidentally meeting Chuxia's mother, Qilu pretended that his bike was broken and asked to stay at her house for the night. Recognizing him as the son of her benefactor, Aunt An told Chuxia to prepare a room for him. The next morning, Qilu taught Aunt An how to clear her phone's memory. She observed that he was both handsome and intelligent and assumed he must have many admirers. However, Qilu admitted that he wasn't good at winning over girls. Inviting him to stay for lunch, Aunt An urged Chuxia to hurry to the market and buy ingredients so she could prepare a nice meal for their benefactor. Qilu offered to accompany Chuxia to the market. On the way, as they passed an abandoned factory, he suddenly stopped. Trembling, he stepped inside as a long-buried nightmare resurfaced. Memories flooded back of a woman who had imprisoned him in this very factory to take revenge on the Han family for ruining her career. Qilu was so terrified that he could hardly breathe. In his darkest, loneliest moment, a little girl in a red dress had stepped out from the bright sunlight. And now, standing before him, he finally recognized the face he had been searching for all this time. It was Chuxia. Hearing his words, Chuxia suddenly remembered. Years ago, she had rescued a kidnapped boy in this very factory. Outside, Qilu scolded Chuxia for only saving him halfway and then leaving him stranded. Chuxia defended herself, explaining that she had seen him thirsty and had run off to get water for him. But when she returned, he was already gone. Qilu recounted that just as Chuxia had left, his father had found him. He had told everyone that a little girl had saved him, but no one believed him. Even the doctors insisted that it was just a hallucination. However, Qilu never gave up and had been searching for the girl in the red dress for years. Back home, Chuxia excitedly told her mother that Qilu was the boy she had saved all those years ago. Aunt An then revealed that Qilu's kidnapper had been one of her former colleagues. Years ago, the Han family had suddenly shut down a factory without providing severance pay to the workers. The woman had lost her job and had also been abandoned by her husband, leaving her in a state of extreme distress. Qilu vaguely remembered that his family had closed the factory as part of an asset optimization plan, but his father had paid a large sum in severance to the workers. Determined to uncover the truth, Qilu vowed to investigate the matter further. At the Han estate, Ma Ting came looking for Qilu. Since her son wasn't home, Madame Han brought out a photo album to entertain her guest. She showed Ma Ting 2 pages of childhood photos of Qilu, but every page after that was filled with pictures of him and Chuxia together. Madame Han stated that her son was indifferent to the entire world, except for Chuxia, the only person he was ever close to. Ma Ting insisted on waiting for Qilu to return and reminded him that their families had arranged their engagement over a decade ago. Taking the opportunity, Qilu boldly announced that he was canceling the engagement. He would decide for himself who he wanted to spend his life with. Madame Han immediately supported her son, granting him the freedom to love whomever he chose. Furious, Ma Ting swore that the Han family would regret this decision. When Chairman Han heard the news, he scolded Qilu for being reckless. He believed that the two families had endured hardships together for decades, making Ma Ting the best choice for Qilu's wife. Qilu challenged his father, asking if he had never suspected the Xiang family. He suspected that years ago they had embezzled the severance funds meant for the textile factory workers. Chairman Han gave Qilu a chance. If he could find proof, he would cancel the engagement with the Xiang family. Qilu went to Chuxia's house to gather information. Since they had never moved, Aunt An still had the old payroll records and the factory's contact book. Qilu aimed to track down an accountant named Liang by Sheng, believing he could reveal who had stolen the workers' severance funds. Following the address in the contact book, they discovered that Liang had moved away 8 years ago. With no other choice, Qilu and Chuxia split up to search for him, agreeing to meet back at the house at 9 p.m. Finally, Qilu located Liang by Sheng. He interrogated him about where the Han family's severance funds had actually gone. Qilu was convinced that Liang still had the records, fearing that the Xiang family might try to silence him. He promised that if Liang handed over the evidence, he would be protected. When Qilu reunited with Chuxia, he reported that he had found Liang. As expected, the Xiang family had embezzled the severance funds. Chuxia urged him to take the evidence to his father immediately. On her way home, Chusha unexpectedly ran into Ma Ting, who invited her to go somewhere with her. Feeling uneasy, Qilu turned back just in time. Ma Ting blamed Chusha for ruining the life she was meant to have. She questioned what Chusha had that she didn't. Qilu urged Ma Ting to let go and move on. He firmly declared that no matter how many people surrounded him, he would always choose Chusha. At the Han residence, Qilu presented his father with Liang Bai Sheng's ledger. It contained detailed records showing that the severance funds meant for the textile factory workers had gone into the Xiang family's pockets. More importantly, it documented the tragic case of a female worker who had been driven to madness after losing her job. Believing that the Han family had abandoned her, she kidnapped Qilu in an act of misguided revenge. She was later committed to a psychiatric institution, which explained why she had vanished without a trace. Chairman Han had suppressed news of Qilu's disappearance, which resulted in his son being locked in the factory for a long time. It wasn't until Chusha arrived to rescue him that he was finally freed. Just as this revelation unfolded, Mr. Xiang arrived to pick up his daughter. Feeling betrayed by an old friend, Chairman Han was deeply disappointed. He not only annulled the engagement but also declared his intention to take the Xiang family to court. Hearing Chairman Han apologize to her, Chusha hesitated to accept it. She insisted that she was not one of the factory workers who had been laid off, so she had no right to forgive on their behalf. She recalled how those workers had struggled to make ends meet, taking on odd jobs to cover medical bills for their elderly parents and school fees for their children. Chairman Han promised to compensate every family affected by the layoffs. Madame Han then expressed her gratitude to Chusha for saving Qilu not once but twice. Chusha in turn acknowledged the Han family's kindness in covering her mother's medical expenses. Noticing that Chusha was about to slip away, Qilu quickly called her back. Feigning a relapse of his past trauma, he insisted that she stay to treat him. By the poolside, Qilu playfully scolded Chusha for daring to leave on his 20th birthday. However, since the birthday cake was delicious, he decided to forgive her temporarily. As a condition, he made her wear the watch he had given her and forbade her from staying more than 1 meter away from him. From that moment on, the Han family treated Chusha like a cherished little princess. Her summer vacation was soon filled with etiquette lessons, culinary classes, music, and dance. Meanwhile, her mother received the best care in a top-tier nursing home. On the other side, Qilu and his father found themselves dining alone. Chairman Han sighed, lamenting that ever since his wife took in Chusha, she had completely ignored him. Qilu too complained that his girlfriend no longer had time for him. Father and son conspired to separate the two women. Qilu ran to inform his mother that his father had fallen ill. Worried, Madame Han rushed to check on her husband. Seizing the opportunity, Qilu ended Chusha's flower arrangement lesson. Once the teacher left, he finally admitted the truth: his father was merely lovesick. To repay Qilu for his clever scheme that helped her escape the flower arrangement class, Chusha decided to showcase her cooking skills in the kitchen. After tasting Chusha's cooking, Qilu praised her for diligently learning household skills. Chusha confided that she needed to work harder to avoid bringing shame to the Han family. However, Qilu reassured her, saying that even without learning such things, she was already more than good enough. At that moment, Ma Ting arrived to bid farewell to the Han family. Before leaving the country, she wanted to apologize to Chusha and wish the couple happiness. Back at the beach, Chusha learned that Sinwei was about to get engaged to Chen Chuan and could only admire her friend's happiness. She lamented that Qilu had yet to confess his feelings. Sinwei advised Chusha to take the initiative. Later, when Chusha met Qilu, she showed him Sinwei's wedding dress. She also mentioned that Chen Chuan had personally designed a pair of shoes for the bride. Sinwei subtly reminded them that rituals and traditions were important for couples. Seeing that Qilu still didn't understand, Chusha grew disappointed and walked away. Even Chen Chuan was speechless at Qilu's obliviousness. That night, Qilu prepared a special surprise for Chusha. "From the moment I first met you, I knew we were meant to be," he confessed. "Ever since we reunited, I've wanted to cherish every second we spend together. I've truly fallen in love with you. Chusha, will you marry me?" Though the ring was a little big, Chusha still loved it. "Han Qilu, I've been waiting for this moment for so long. Let's be together forever." At last, the once demonic young master had found the light of his life. And the little Cinderella had finally met her prince. and Chuxia and Han Qilu would never be separated again.